That means you're fucked.
All right,
Sorry.
now we finally got this thing going. Good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night here at Beyond the Airwaves, the Infinity Project. That's right, it's Hump Day. Let's bring it on. All right. Anyway, since it is Wednesday, it's time for one of our wildcard shows, and tonight it's Secrets of the Unknown, and we're doing a special one at the Cambre House. And of course, I'm your host for tonight. I am Oddball Stream. I'm going to introduce everybody here. First, we have our resident star child, Janet.
Hello, everybody. How was your hump day?
Good. We also have our resident joker, Mike.
Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday.
We also have at the bottom, no longer Red Ranger Tim. Say hello to Spirit Spotter Tim.
Hello.
You knew new name was coming, and here it is.
And I am going to let Spirit Spotter Tim take the rest of this intro because he will introduce our special guest. Take it away, Tim.
Oops, sorry.
So tonight we have a very special episode of the Unknown. As you remember, in the past on our previous platform, Blog Talk Radio, most of our shows took a Ghost Adventures like format where I would talk about a property, talk about the history, talk about the goings on, the alleged hauntings, and whatnot. And because we are not investigators ourselves, I go over someone else's evidence. 9 times out of 10 or better, that's Ghost Adventures, but not necessarily always. Tonight, I'm going to debut another type of show that we will be having from time to time as we go forward, a roundtable discussion. And joining us for that is Rebecca Williamson of the Cambre House. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thanks, Tim. I'm glad to have me on here. I'm excited.
And we're excited to have you too because I first met Rebecca last November at the local Psychic and Paranormal Expo, and I learned about her property at Cambre House, which I was only vaguely familiar with because the host of the expo was down there the previous week, I think, investigating, and I was rather intrigued. And so I thought maybe Rebecca would like to come on and talk with us about the Cambre House, about the Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Cambre House?
Sure. So the Cambre House was built in 1867 by Adolphe and Hortense Cambre. Adolphe Cambre was a cabinet maker who built several of the houses in the area. He was a French immigrant who came to America as part of the Icarian colonies. And I always pause and say, has anybody heard of the Icarians? And no one has.
I haven't either.
So I get to do a little history education. The Icarians were a communal society that was birthed out of the French Revolution. They came to America to create their perfect utopian communal society. They were in the Nauvoo area for about 7 years. The Cambries came to be part of that society. They were only with the Icarian colony for a few months before they left and bought a farm at first south of Nauvoo before they bought the farm in 1860 on the property where their house stands today. They built a one-room cabin while they were constructing the big 6-room house that stands there now. They had 10 children, and every time people come in and see this little 3-bedroom house and I say they had 10 children, people are always amazed that they had 10 kids in a 3-bedroom house, but different times for sure. So the Cambre family had the farm as a working farm and apple orchard until 1979. In 1979, the house was sold at auction and my grandparents bought it. My grandmother lived a short ways away from the farm, and she had come to that farm and picked apples as a little girl. So when the house went up for auction, she wanted it. She talked my grandfather into at least going out to see it. And when they got out there, my grandfather fell in love with it, and they bought it. They bought it with the intention of preserving the history of the home. They never intended to live there. So my grandmother loved antiques. They loved, my grandparents both were just loved history and antiques. So they treated the house like a giant dollhouse, basically. They filled it with antiques. We did family gatherings. They did craft shows out there every fall. And in 2015, my grandmother passed away. And then I bought the farm with the intention of doing the same thing they did, which was preserving the history of the home. So try explaining to your friends that you bought a 3-bedroom house you don't intend on moving into. That's always been a little tricky. I always describe it, it's more museum than house. So everything in the house, for the most part, is original to the 1860s. The floor pan is the same. Upstairs, it's even the original milk paint that was on the walls in the 1860s.
The original what paint?
Milk paint. It's a type of paint that they used in the 1860s.
Similar to our latex today.
Kind of. It's more of a stain than like a paint. So like the pigment was mixed in with actual milk and then put on the walls.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, upstairs is almost completely original. When my grandparents bought the house in 1979, there wasn't even running water in the house. There was electricity, but they had water added. So they didn't want to change anything about the house, but we wanted a bathroom inside. And so my father put a bathroom in the attic area upstairs. So if you ever go up to the house and you see this weird little bathroom upstairs in this funny little attic area, that's why, because they don't want to change anything out there. Around 2000, it got harder for my grandmother to go up and down the stairs. So they put a second bathroom in downstairs in the corner of the bedroom. So it's got running water and bathrooms, which is very exciting, especially for me in the 80s, being a young kid, not having to use the outhouse anymore. That was super exciting.
That would probably be a problem in the winter.
Yeah, the spiders out there in that outhouse were huge. I'm telling you, it was pretty freaky. So yeah, after I bought the farm, then I tried to decide what I was going to do with the farm. I don't know. And brief history of the farm.
And for those that are interested, I should have bookmarked this way back when. I just found the live static camera feed from the house. If anybody is interested in it, it's at thespiritrealm.net. And then click under static cameras, and then you'll see Cambre House. Click on that, and that's where the live feed will be.
I actually
Although
put
I
a
currently
link to it
show,
in the Twitch chat, so
okay, it's also here in our private chat too. If anybody, many of my colleagues want to see what's going on in live feed at the house.
hmm
Although I can't tell if it's my internet or what, but it says something about camera feed down. I don't know. Oh, nope.
We've been having some internet issues out there the last week.
okay.
So yeah, I was hoping it was back up, but yeah, typically we have the live feed on the Spirit Realm network that you can pop in and watch. We kind of move the camera around a little bit. Right now it's in the living room, in theory, if the internet's working.
They have tables in the living room, like kitchen table and what, unless it's been moved again.
I see. I'm looking at the static display, and there's a table in the middle of the thing, and there's a bunch of chairs that look like they're on the wall.
Oh, he must have moved it to the dining room then.
Okay.
Yeah, because I see a big old paintbrush too.
Yes, so I teach painting classes out there too.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah,
nice thing
I
about
come from a
this,
I
go
come
ahead.
from a very arty family. My mom is an actual artist. That's what she does for a living, is paint pictures. So when we were trying to decide different things that we could do out there, we decided we could do painting classes. So I actually taught a painting class last weekend.
I just got the no camera connection again, but that might be my internet, not rather than the camera
Well, and it
problem.
might be the internet out at the farm. Like I said,
Could be that
we've been
too.
fighting it over the weekend. So
Mm.
Um,
So if
have
you're ever curious what's going on at the house, they do have the static camera running 24/7. And like we were talking about before the show began, I happened to be watching the camera the other day and chatting with Rebecca on Facebook, and I saw at least one orb manifest on the right side. This is when the camera was in the basement. It wasn't in the dining room where it is now. An orb manifested on the right side of the camera and then shot upward and to the left, if I remember correctly. And then I saw what looked like an insect flying around. That
yeah, there's usually a bug or two out there. I will
bug or
say that.
two. But the most convincing thing I heard was, again, and mind you, this is a static camera. It's not moving. It just sits there and records whatever happens to be in front of it, audio, video, whatever. In this particular moment in time, when I was watching it, I heard like funk, 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 like somebody was coming down a wood set of wooden stairs. And if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca, the stairs that go down in there, I think are wooden, or at least
Yeah,
they
yeah,
look like they are.
yes,
And
they are wood. They are the original
nothing.
stairs.
I saw
Hmm.
nothing, but it was clearly you can clearly hear it, like people walking on wood. And I told Rebecca that I said I'm hearing footsteps coming out of the static camera at the house, and she said there was at the time there was nobody in the house. So if you
Right.
happen to be watching the camera at the right time, you never know what you're gonna find.
We have a lot of noises out at the farm. So lots and lots of footsteps. That's almost everybody will hear footsteps out there. I can almost guarantee you're going to hear some footsteps. In fact, like the first night that that Spirit Realm camera went online, they did a Facebook Live of it on Spirit Realm, and I popped in to watch it because it was the very first night, um, and yeah, we heard footsteps. We all clearly heard footsteps. There were several people in the chat on the Facebook Live and heard those footsteps. And my son was actually out there at the farm. And so I text messaged him to see if he was walking around. And yeah, no, he wasn't. He was laying on the couch watching a movie. So he was not walking around. And he was actually physically present to tell people that nobody was walking around. But we, like, everyone in the chat had heard the footsteps. So
So if you're interested in some of the hauntings and whatnot that's going out there, definitely be sure to set some time to look at the static camera. That's running 24/7, and the spirit realm. Not to the Detroit Police Department 6th Precinct. They had one at the old YMCA here in Rock Island that's now Dan Viner Furniture, and they had one at the Cambre House. And for the life of me, I can't remember where the fourth one was. I want to say Ginger's Place, but I could be wrong. It could have been the McIntyre Villa or the Mason House Inn. Might have been the Mason House Inn.
incoming.
Incoming. Up, here come the dogs.
Sorry about that, people.
No, it's okay, Jan. It happens. So I
yeah,
see.
the Spirit World cameras are cool to watch. They're free. So yeah, it's kind of cool. They're fun to watch. I have a lot of friends who I didn't know were interested in the paranormal that are watching the Spirit Realm cam every now and again.
I think I'm going to make a more conscientious effort to do so myself, especially the Cambre House and the YMCA's been moved too. I guess they do periodically move them, don't they? So we can get where that one is at the YMCA. So I see on the website for the Cambre House. For those of you that don't know, it's
Normally, those
cambrehouse.com.
little buggers are hard to get in the cage.
Huh.
No problema tonight. Oh,
Oh my!
okay. Carry on.
I see that on the website for the Cambre House, cambrehouse.com, you offer ghost tours at the property as well as weddings and other rental. I mean, what's a ghost tour like if you were to get a hold of you and sign up for one?
Yeah, so I offer ghost tours twice a year, October and June. I do one. I try to do an event on summer solstice, just because it's a fun time to do it. It's summer. It's kind of an off season for ghosty tours. I mean, most people think about doing that during October, so try and spread it out just a little bit. And then I do 2 weekends in October. This year we're doing the 16th and 17th for my normal ghost tours. And then October 30th and 31st, I've got a
Yeah,
big Halloween event I am super excited about. So,
Hmm.
but
I was going to say October sounds like a good one for Halloween.
yes, well,
It
I,
is.
I've been telling people it's like the Super Bowl of Halloweens because Halloween follows on a Saturday. It's
Ooh.
a full moon and it's time change, so you get an extra hour.
Oh
Oh
wow.
yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
right, because Sunday's the first. That'd be the time change. That's right.
it is. It's the
That's
Super
right.
Bowl of Halloweens. So I've planned this really cool event. I'm doing it in conjunction with the Kingsley Inn, which is just across the river in Fort Madison, Iowa. And we're having
I don't know about that.
the Southern Gypsies are coming and Karen
Woo!
Rontowski. So Karen Rontowski is a stand-up paranormal comedian who does paranormal investigations. So we're Friday night we're having a dinner, stand-up comedy. We're investigating the Kingsley, and then Saturday they're doing tarot readings through the day, and then Saturday night we're investigating Cambre. So
Yeah. I just saw something interesting here. You also do haunted weddings?
yeah,
Oh, I must have missed that. I've gone over this. I've gone over the website with a fine tooth comb. I must have missed that.
Yeah, I like this at haunted wedding, $500 full use of our location for your wedding. It's like, now that'd be cool.
well
It,
we
it, it,
Well, I added that to like the ghost tour page because I thought people who came to look for the ghost tour may not click on the wedding tab, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
yeah.
But if they're on the ghost page and they see like, oh yeah, I could have a haunted wedding. I mean, yeah.
Why not?
You have to admit
Sure. I
that's
mean, if
something
I've heard of
unique.
people getting married at that hillbilly hot dog's place in West Virginia, it's like, what the heck? Why not?
Exactly.
I had a couple who got eloped out there over the quarantine and they were getting ready for their wedding and they were the only ones out there. They were waiting for the minister and the photographer and stuff to show up and they heard somebody walking around upstairs in the house. So, yeah,
You have to admit
can't
that's something
guarantee
unique.
experiences, but
You have to admit that's pretty unique. Not a lot of wedding venues can offer something like that, like the Cambre House does.
Hmm.
right. So, yeah, when you rent the house for the wedding weekend, you get the house Friday evening.
Now I know I've kind of sort of known this, but I doubt my colleagues have noticed this. And I'm still looking at the Ghost Tours page just for reference purposes. That's a door going to nowhere above the entrance.
Yes. um, so yeah, there is a door to nowhere. The first step is a doozy.
Yeah.
It
Remind you
is
of the Winchester
One step,
Mystery House.
all down it goes flat.
so Adolph Cambre built
Kind of like that, yeah.
at least 5 houses in the area, and that is a feature that he added into every house that he built. There was never intended to be a balcony outside that doorway. It's used for ventilation and moving furniture in and out of the house. So the stairway is a little bit steep. So yeah, it's a lot easier to move furniture in and out that doorway than the stairway. And then when you open up that door and the window across the way, there's a really good breeze and it keeps the house super cool. So
Oh,
That is
nice.
inventive. I like that.
yeah, between the shading of the trees and the way the house is built, it actually stays very cool out there. So
Now I know
Cool your jets with the bone, dog.
oh my.
oh,
I,
so anyway, back to my tours. So
yeah,
yeah,
back
usually
to
I
tour.
do like a $20 2-hour tour. It's a guided tour.
Hmm.
So the way that works is I give you like some history of the farm and the location. I explain how the investigative tools work. So I'll explain the EMF and that sort of stuff. And then you get to investigate with a paranormal team. So Augusta Paranormal is normally my team who's there who helps me out. And they will guide you on a paranormal investigation. You use our equipment to investigate my location with an investigative team.
And I happen to know Chad Derry, I believe he's the lead investigator for Augusta Paranormal. He's a
Yes. Yeah.
wonderful fellow. I love him to death. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
I
He's
wasn't. I was recently investigated the aforementioned Rock Island YMCA with him and Steve Weeks on June 27th, just about a month ago. It had an interesting experience there. Again, not to go off topic, but since I brought it up, uh, I've been there once before on a public investigation, the YMCA, not the Cambre House. That's on my bucket list. And I was down in the basement of the YMCA using a K2 meter, which those that don't know, it basically lights up when energy comes in. And I asked, let's see, what did I ask? I asked them if they had ever seen me before, and the was just dead, no response. And I said, "Are you meeting me for the first time?" Then it shot up to three lights, and then came back down. That, for those that don't know, is an intelligent response to my question. The spirit that I was talking to, I believe, is the one named Chuck, or so one of the others said. But they gave an intelligent response to my question as to whether they had ever seen me before. And I thought that was interesting. And of course, I'm a big fellow, diabetic, out of shape, all that good stuff. And I went to go sit down for a minute just to, get off my feet and relax. They had a chair along the wall there. And it was so warm down there. Even when they asked the spirits to cool it off, I had to come back upstairs and I was basically knocked out of commission probably for a good couple hours. I completely felt drained by that experience in the basement. And I had never been, I knew it could happen. Nothing even remotely close to that happened the first time around. So
right. Right. I mean, that's one of those things you read about a lot, but until you actually
until you
experience it.
experience it, you know,
Yeah.
it really takes a lot out of you because the spirits need your energy to respond. And that happened there. But building off of that, I want to go back to the aforementioned investigation that Kelly McCarville and Chris Nielsen had at the house. I believe was that the day before I met you at the expo, or was that later?
I think it was shortly
I
before
think it was shortly before too, like a day before or two.
where they caught the tie on his hoodie being flipped up.
I came in the middle of that one, and I watched it on Facebook Live, and Kelly was asking all kinds of questions, and that pendulum responded intelligently every single time.
Yeah, it did. And they were getting some really good spirit box responses in that one too. That one was the one where Chris Nielsen was listening to the spirit box and Chad Derry popped up in the chat room and Chris said dairy and he didn't know what he was talking about. And then he heard Chad too. So that was just like, it was incredible. I think it even said Darren's name over the chat, over the spirit
it might
box.
have, and
Yeah.
see, that's just for my colleagues. That's just one. The spirits. The more they see you, the more they interact with you, they will remember you. So when he said dairy, because Chad had popped up in the chat, the spirit knew exactly who he was talking to because he was familiar with him.
Right. And Chris didn't know. I mean, he knows Chad, but he hadn't made the connection when it came up dairy. He was thinking, what are they talking about? Cows? But then when it said Chad, then he was like, oh, and it made sense. And it was just, yeah, that was an incredible investigation
Okay.
on Facebook Live. I think that one was like an hour and a half
Okay.
Facebook Live
Something
just
like
because it
that,
was so
yeah.
cool,
Uh,
such cool activity.
Rebecca,
Yeah.
have you ever encountered in the Cambre house any hostile spirits?
Not at Cambre, no. Most I always describe him more like Casper out there.
Yeah.
It was a happy home. They're there because they like it. And for the most part, nothing out there is hostile. Like sometimes outside it gets a little bit more uncomfortable because I have a lot of Indian activity out in the yard. Um, and so I have a mineral spring on my property that some of the Indian chiefs use those medicinal springs. So there was definitely a lot of Indian activity on my property. So like in the yard itself, there will be like a lot of shadow figures and things. So outside it gets a little bit more uncomfortable. I don't know that I
But
necessarily.
but they never tried to harm you.
No, no, they're more protective of the property out there.
Okay.
So I guess if I was trying to harm the property, it might be a little different, but I don't necessarily think. Yeah, I've never felt threatened out there, but that's a different story. So
You
Yeah.
mentioned seeing shadow figures out there. You know if they're somehow connected to the Indians that used to live on that property, or any idea who they might be if they're not? Because I have a hard time thinking these would be members of the Cambre family.
no, I'm pretty sure that they're Native American. Um, After I bought the property, I found out that I have desecrated Indian burial mounds out there. Um, so that was kind of a weird thing finding out because they are like depressions in the ground. The one is about 20 foot around, and like it took me doing a lot of research to realize that most of the Indian mounds in my area of Illinois were all dug up around the 1820s. All the artifacts and bones and everything were taken out of those mounds. About 3 miles away from me, as the crow flies, there is a Indian mound cemetery where there are 35 Indian mounds. So they had that area designated as a public cemetery. And my mound, quote unquote mounds, because mine's a depression, but um, mine look exactly like theirs. So I had the local Native American Council, Standing Bear Council. They came out. They verified that they are indeed Native American mounds. They blessed my mounds. And
I was just
so
about to ask about that if you ever have been blessed or thought about that, because if you disturb these bones and whatnot in the ground, just even if you don't even know they're there, that can trigger
Well,
unforeseen responses, if you will, not necessarily evil.
right.
It could be that these shadow figures are appearing because maybe their remains were disturbed, even if on accident, and they're trying to draw your attention to it. So I was just curious if you ever had that experience.
Just for a lot of reasons, but mainly just respect. But the actual yard part of my house does have a lot of shadow figures, and yeah, again, I tend to think those are Native American. So
Uh, oh crap! I forgot what I was going to ask you, Rebecca.
It happens. It
it,
happens.
it, it, ha- it happens when I go off on a tangent because Rebecca and I have some experience in this area, so we sometimes get technical and we get to ramble on a little bit, and then yeah, you forget what you're gonna. I've been there, done that.
Hmm.
right, and usually when I throw out the part about the Indian mounds, everybody kind of goes, "What?" and they get lost.
I had no prior knowledge of them, but I'm not surprised. With us living in the part of Illinois that we are, and you're only what 2 hours away from me,
Right.
if that.
Yeah.
So we're not that far apart geographically. I know up here the Sauk tribe, I believe it was, occupied the area that's right
Right.
there, not too
And
far from it, where Black Hawk and his men were. And I don't know if
yeah,
they settled down in that part of Illinois.
they did. Well, they traveled a lot between where I'm at and where you're at. So Chief Blackhawk actually came to the mineral spring on my property and believe that was medicinal water. So Chief Blackhawk and Chief Athenaeus were both known to have come to my mineral spring there. Um, but the mounds themselves, I think, are Mississippian. I don't know. I they're older than the Sauk and the Fox. Um,
The, the what?
The Sauk, Sauk. It's an Indian tribe.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Cool.
And Chief Blackhawk is well known, obviously. The Sauk were the tribe that he led. And like Rebecca said, they were in my area up here in the Quad Cities, but they also traveled along the river. So
yeah.
again, going back to the whole Native American burial mounds, I've learned could they be related somehow?
Yeah, and the Cambre family had told my grandmother that they remembered Indians coming around the 1900s to my Indian Mound area and having like campfires and stuff. So
Mm,
yeah, it's just an interesting part of the history on my property. I have a ton of history on my property. So like my lane was part of the stagecoach route. It cuts
Mm.
right through the middle of my property, and it was closed in 1921, but Google Maps still recognizes that as a road.
Oh wow, that's neat.
I just now saw for the first time ever there actually is a Wikipedia page on the Cambre House.
Oh wow.
Yes,
I did
yes,
not
there is.
know that. It's ever so brief, but if you're ever curious where it's at, because after tonight's episode, you're gonna want to come and visit it because there's all kinds of cool stuff going on. There actually is a map where they dropped a pin right where it's at.
Yes, so it is on the National Register of Historic Places. It's considered an example of Icarian architecture. So, yes, it does have a Wikipedia page.
I did not know that. The things you learn. A lot of people don't give a lot of academic credit to Wikipedia, and with good reason. But do you think some of these places that to you are obscure and out in the middle of nowhere, and they have a Wikipedia page?
Yeah, and I am out in the middle of nowhere.
I can say when I was putting together my paranormal bucket list, you probably saw that the Cambre House was always going to be on there. I'm just trying to pull everything off the top of my head. Someday, Lord willing, I want to come down and see the house.
One of these days, I'm going to get you out there. It's going to happen.
I'm gonna go. We're gonna go down there. I'm gonna check out the house. Maybe swing by Spoonies, have a pork tenderloin. I don't know, good stuff. I definitely, I definitely want. Oh, the picture on the schedule of events page, the little sign. Come on in. That's a nice little touch.
Yeah, we got that cute little chalkboard and we use that all the time because it's just so handy.
Now I have to admit, now but not in the color of broad daylight, except that one point during the investigation when she had the pendulum out,
Yeah.
and we talked about that. What other notable investigations have taken place at the house that you know of, or the more interesting ones?
Oh gosh, we've had a ton of really interesting investigations. The ghost tours have been awesome. I, it was so nerve wracking the first time we did a ghost tour out there because, um, it's not like I can just go up and flip on the switch and say, okay, ghost activity now. Okay, guys, you're on in 5. Let's go.
Or like the
So,
Beetlejuice meme I shared earlier today. When you're in a haunted location and strange things start to happen, it's showtime.
right. Yeah. So, yeah, here I am charging people money to come into a house and hopefully they're going to have
Hopefully it'll
activity.
be showtime.
Right. Exactly. But we've had some incredible activity. Oh my gosh, there are all kinds of stories. I could tell stories all night.
Any interesting EVP captures, possibly? I think that's something folks might
Um,
be interested in knowing about.
a few. We got apples on an EVP one time, which was really cool since it was a working apple orchard to have them say apples. It was really, that one was really good. Um, I'm told last weekend, I don't have the file yet. They're supposed to be emailing it to me, but they got a girl's voice out in the barn. Um, they said that they heard a conversation out in the barn for like 20 minutes over EVP. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
so
a long time for a. Okay, that's.
yeah,
I'll ask that question. How long? What's the longest EVP encounter you had?
me personally, um,
General, in general.
in general, I would say usually like when you get an EVP, it's just like a quick little snip of voice. It's just like a quick little thing. They were saying the one that this weekend, it was like a conversation that just kept going on in the background. And I mean, when you're out here, there is like nobody within probably 5 miles of you. No joke. That you're out there. There's nobody, and out in the barn there isn't even electricity. There's no electricity out in the barn, so yeah, they were just blown away. And so that was the investigation last weekend. Um, so yeah, me personally, EVPs. I don't usually record a lot of audio because I hate listening to it. So yeah,
It's almost like you don't want to listen to yourself when you record yourself.
yeah, I mean, I love doing the investigation, but to sit there and listen to 5 hours of people shuffling around, just yeah, I can't.
And I can confirm when I was at the YMCA the first time on the public investigation, that really is what it sounds like. She's not kidding. Uh, what happened in my case, just to give you, it sounds almost like a bunch of garbled gibberish, really.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
people don't know
exactly.
or don't think you can have two spirits in the same room and they can see and interact with each other just as much as you and I can interact with each other. It doesn't make any sense when we hear them talk most of the time. But and I know there are people out there that don't agree or like the use of like spirit boxes or apps. I always usually kind of take it with a grain of salt because you never know when it's real and when it's faked. And I was on the second floor of the YMCA with Aaron Thompson of Ghostfire, which is based out of the Quad Cities here. It was me and him and 4 other people in the room at the time. This is about halfway through that invest. I started the first half with Kelly and her group, and then the second half I did with Aaron and his. And this was in December 1st of 2018, so it was about 7 months after I fell and hurt my leg initially. And I had mentioned it in passing to somebody down on the first floor, so I wouldn't be surprised if the spirits heard me talking about it and picked up on it. But Aaron had asked the spirits, and he was using necrophonic, In case you're familiar with that, Rebecca, I don't know which
Yeah, I
one
am
you've
familiar
ever.
with that one.
Actively expecting, hey, maybe they'll say something and people won't catch. I actually heard them distinctly answer six. Like, okay, one, two, Aaron, one, two, me. Yeah, there were six people in the room. That's exactly what he asked. And then a short time later, he asked, and I knew he was singling me out, but just it was more of a test to see if the spirits could make that determination. He said, "Who in the room is injured?" And again, I listened attentively, and again, a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And then I heard Tim, crystal clear. But
Yeah.
Oh,
think of it like that. Think of it as like a dual layer sort of thing. The upper layer is constant gibberish. You're always going to hear back and forth gibberish. And most on the second layer is going to be mostly silent. And then if they answer, you'll hear it at the same time the gibberish is going on. So you have to listen attentively or you
Right.
won't hear it. And I'm like,
Right,
oh.
exactly. So, yeah, when you're listening to that playback of the audio trying to catch the EVP, you do have to be really intent listening to it, concentrating to filter out all the noise of people shuffling around and then like
right.
running necrophonic or whatever.
Yeah, because
So yeah,
go ahead.
when I see these investigations and they're laying out like five different audio things and they're recording for like the investigation, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's 48 hours of audio that they're gonna have to listen through. I'm like, that's not me.
I think it would be a lot easier just to do like an EVP burst session where you
Yeah, the
basically take out a
burst.
recorder and then you ask a question, wait about a minute or two, ask another question, wait a minute or two, ask another question, and so forth, and then stop the recorder
Right,
rather than
that
having
I
to sit
can
through
do and
40
I have
hours.
done, but yeah, like I said, listening to all the audio, again, that's personal preference because I have heard some EVPs that they have captured from the static audio, laying in the room, that are incredible. I've heard some incredible evidence caught that way. It's just personal preference. I can't stand to sit through all that. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, I've got the patience and the desire, but be reasonable with yourself too. I mean, yeah, you're recording it. Yeah, you never know what you're going to pick up. You never know when they're going to say anything either. And
Right.
if you're sitting and listening to 40 plus hours of recordings to see if you caught anything, at least do yourself the honor of doing a burst session first to see if you have anybody's attention. Then just hit roll and let it record. But just to illustrate how complicated this can be, I'm going to use Ghost Adventures as a perfect example of this again because just to illustrate how attentive you have to be listening to this. When they investigated at the Villisca Axe Murder House in Villisca, Iowa, I know Mike remembers that was our first ever episode of that we talked about, and they captured an EVP and they couldn't make out what it said. I caught it on the first shot. I'm like, you guys are putting this on this television show for ratings, and you're putting the footage on here with this EVP, and you have absolutely no idea what it says. Now, if you knew what happened at the Axe Murder House, you would know exactly what the EVP said. For the record, what the EVP actually said was, I killed 6 kids. Well, if you're familiar with the murders at the house, that's exactly what happened. 6 kids and 2 adults were murdered in their sleep by an unknown assailant with an axe. They never did catch the perpetrator. Ghost Adventures couldn't even make that out on the first shot, but it was loud and clear because I listened attentively to their recording. And then they go back, they bring a guy,
Right.
Johnny Hauser and one other guy I think they brought, and they finally figured out that it started with I killed something something, and I'm like, come on, people, listen closely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And then
Yeah.
finally they figured out
some
I
people
killed
have an
6
ear
I'm
for
like,
that, and
"Yes,
some people don't. And
yes,
I
sir."
personally don't have the ear to listen to all that stuff. So, but there's some people that love listening to try and find EVPs, and they will listen to all 48 hours of the audio. Like I said,
I
personal
admire
preference.
their persistence.
No.
And I think that, like I said, a birth session EVP would be better for at least, if not, if for no other reason than to establish, yeah, I am talking to a spirit.
Right,
Because
right.
you could be sitting there listening for 48 hours and listen, these are friendly spirits. There's nothing evil or negative in them. Well, shadow figures possibly, but not likely. So if a benign spirit can make me jump out of my chair just from walking down the stairs,
Yeah, and we have had people leave. We've had people get scared during the ghost tour and leave. In fact, one of the first ones that happened to was on a ghost tour, and this girl was like so excited to be there. I mean, she was so excited. She brought 5 friends with her. That she was the one who brought all these friends with her. She was super, super excited. I mean, I cannot tell you how excited this girl was to be there. And I do like an hour history, ghost hunting 101, and and then they go in the house with Chad. And so she had finished my part and they went into the house, and next thing I know, she is like booking it to the car, and I'm like, what what happened?
what happened?
Well, they were in the backyard and they were using the spirit box, and apparently just as they turned on the spirit box, it wasn't like a minute before it said hello gorgeous, very loudly and clearly. And
Ooh.
girl turned white as a sheet and turned around and left. And it turned out that her grandfather had died um a few months before this point, and that's what he always called her. So when that came out over the spirit box, it scared the crap out of her.
The
And
two things I like the most in evidence: Class A EVPs, like the ones that Rebecca and I are talking about, which are clearly audible, and then of
yeah,
course the non-debunkable video evidence.
yeah,
You'll remember when we were talking about the static camera when it was down in the basement. I saw what amounted to an insect, and this is before you said that. I actually acknowledge the possibility that this was not something paranormal. I see something that looks like it might be an orb. Oh, no, it's an insect. And then you said, yeah, there's all kinds of insects. And then the footsteps.
and then we saw the orb.
And then the orb. And of course, if you don't, you see pictures of orbs, you got to remember it could be a car headlight, it could be a flashlight, it could be any number of. We're talking in a basement with cement walls. There is no way it's going to be a car headlight.
Right,
And
and trust me, there are no roads there by the house where a car would drive by. It's not possible.
and considering the cement walls of the basement, there is no way it would be a flashlight without it being blatantly obvious. This was not obvious. This was not something I could easily explain, in despite not having ever been to the house. Just to see it manifest in one side of the what the camera was showing me, and then shooting off in another direction. That's and there's nobody there, because if somebody was in the house, Rebecca would know about it and say, "Oh,
Right,
there's somebody upstairs." That's probably what you're hearing. She confirmed there was nobody in the house at the time I was watching the camera. So no
right,
flashlight,
and that was
no car
definitely
headlights.
different than the bug. I mean, we both saw the bug.
The bug, yeah. The closer
um,
it got, the better it looked like a bug.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But that one was clearly an orb. So I always describe the difference between bugs and orbs. Bugs are fuzzy, they move, they've got movement, they're gonna jig jag all over the place, and it's fuzzy. An orb is bright. It looks like it's emitting its own light source. It's a perfectly round. It has clean edges to it, and yeah, it's bright. And when you see an orb and you see a bug together, you can definitely see the difference.
And I knew some of the things that could easily be mistaken for a bug. And
Mm-hmm.
when Rebecca and I were watching it together, that was definitely a bug. But that orb, that was definitely an orb,
I
all right.
saw. I think one of the investigations I went on that was the most dramatic was I saw an orb with my naked eye. Um, that was at Rockcliffe Mansion in Hannibal, Missouri. They have
Ah,
a third floor ballroom, and I was up there investigating in the dark. Um, and yeah, an orb manifested in front of us and rolled across that ballroom floor.
so this would be a
Only
good
time I've ever
example.
seen. Usually, like if you see an orb, it's like over video or with a camera or something. But yeah, to see one with just
This
a
one,
ball
this
of
one was
light
my
across the floor, that
yeah.
was
This one was
incredible.
with my naked eye watching the spirit realm static camera, and that I have somebody put that link in the. I think somebody put that in the Twitch chat. I think
Yeah,
I know I
Shirley did earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley did. Like I thought
Yeah.
she did. I went ahead and just tuned that back on here for the last few minutes of the show just in case I stumble across something. Right now it's looks like it's been moved back just a hair. It might be. It's still in the dining room, and it just paused. Okay. I thought it was moved up a little more because I could see the table a bit more pronounced, but it looks like it might have been pushed back just a hair. But I can still see the chairs on the wall. I can still see the dining room table. It's not moving. It's not moving.
Hmm.
Is that me, or are you guys seeing it move at all? I keep seeing the double fast forward. Okay, now it's swirling. I thought as a test, I would turn that on in a separate window and just casually watch and see if something manifests while we're talking. Because maybe the spirits know we're talking about them in the house, and maybe they want to say hello by doing something for us on camera.
That would
As a
be
Yeah.
interesting.
I was like, I can't even sustain
Yeah.
looking
Well,
at
now
them.
it's really dark because of course it's nighttime. So.
It's not, yeah, that too. We
Yeah, I was
started.
gonna say it probably switched over to night vision.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It looks like it has.
That's all the
Yep.
questions I had for Rebecca. You guys have anything else you want to ask
Well,
her?
let's see.
Or anything else, Rebecca, you think might be interesting that we haven't asked about?
mm,
I can't really think of anything.
You got
Sorry,
about what?
Rebecca.
You got about what? 10, 15 minutes to go yet?
Um,
Yeah.
according to my clock, according to my computer clock, it's 4 minutes.
Well, actually,
Well,
it's about
it's
little.
got.
It's a little about six actually because of the simple fact that we didn't quite go live at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was
right.
Okay.
quite
All
after.
Oh,
right.
I didn't tell you this spirits that are out there that I've confirmed. I
Okay,
could.
yeah, yeah, that might be a good topic to go. So, which spirits that are out there have you been able to confirm are out there?
Okay, so I have one of the Cambry's daughters. She died at the age of 9 on the property. She died in 1864, and the house was built in 1867. So she didn't
So,
die.
so,
Yeah,
so her spirit stayed with the house
yes.
because it was
So
probably the only place she knew.
her family moved into that house after she passed away. So I'm assuming that she just went with her family to the house. But
Uh
she's
huh.
definitely active in the house. She's buried on the property in an unmarked grave. The family knew where it was, but that has kind of been lost to time.
Hmm.
A lot of the activity we get in the house is Eglantine is her name. She's very intelligent, very active haunting. the pendulum session Tim was talking about, she was the spirit who was answering the yes or no questions during that session. And so Eglantine is the first one. The other one is a boy who died at the age of 9 also. He's a grandson to the Cambries. He didn't live on the property, but he obviously visited quite a bit because he lived just down the road. His name is Lewis. So we get a lot of child activity. You'll hear a lot of footsteps running around.
Have you ever
So
heard any children's laughter?
yes. Yes, we have definitely heard children's laughter, and I think we've got that on EVP. Um, so yeah, so the two children, those are our most active spirits. There's also an adult male. I think it's Fritz. He mainly hangs out in the upstairs bedroom, and he's not super interactive. But we've definitely caught some every once in a while there's a picture when we take photographs of the upstairs bedroom, there'll be a face looking out of that window.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I believe that's Fritz. And then there's an adult woman. I were there and that they are interacting with her. It just if we have activity 9 times out of 10, it's Eglantine. And then the others are just kind of hanging out there. So
Mm-hmm.
and then we also, my grandparents will pop in every now and again. My grandfather is very, um, he loved this place with a passion. So he will answer questions and stuff. Particularly, he loves showing off the house. Uh, we had a contractor over one day who was putting LP in our LP tank, and I was on my way to meet him out there. The guy got there 15 minutes before I did, and I got there and he was all finishing up. I'm like, "Oh, did you need me to let you in the house?" And he's like, "No, the house was open." And I'm like, "I'm sure Granddad let him in. I know my granddad let him in."
He probably knew what he was there for and said, "No, I'm not gonna wait till Rebecca gets here. Come on in."
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I,
Just like the chalkboard
exactly.
says, "Come on in."
Yeah, come on in.
Come
I'm sure he was
on
probably
in.
chatting the guy up the whole time. I mean, that was just my granddad. Um, and then
And
my grandma,
I just have
she
another question. Go ahead.
it's usually just like a hint of cinnamon smell. Every once in a while, we'll smell that, and
Yeah,
my
phantom smells are good for if you know somebody that really liked it and you can smell it. The odds are they're putting that out there so you would recognize it and know that they're there.
yeah, exactly. When she did craft shows, she got a whole bunch of cinnamon brooms. That house was like filled with cinnamon, and I mean, you walked in the door and it was just cinnamon hit you in the face. And of course, that the last craft show was in '94, so it's been a long time. And so yeah, you can't really smell cinnamon now, but every once in a while you'll turn a corner and it'll be in your face cinnamon, and then it's like, okay, that's grandma. Yeah.
I've got one last question of my own for you. I just happened to think about when you were talking, going back to the whole pendulum thing. Has anybody, it can be Kelly and Chris, has anybody ever tried using dowsing rods?
Yes. Yes.
Especially with the children.
Yeah, dowsing rods are very popular. I use dowsing rods on like almost every ghost tour. Um, and yeah, they yes, no questions, cross for yes, uncross for no. Um, yeah, dowsing rods are very popular. We use those quite a bit. So, to actually find her grave though, that I would love to do, because you can use dowsing rods to find graves. I didn't know if you knew that.
I didn't know
Um,
that.
yeah, you can. Uh, Problem is like I've got 30 acres and there's a lot of steep ravines and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's not as easy as, walking the cemetery and trying to find a grave. It's uh there's a lot of area to cover. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
it's almost like I live in my house for about 15 years now. Of course, my dad passed away. He was in 1988. But every once in a while, in the living room, we have like this. We have a mantle over the fireplace. It's basically all dad. And when Chester was alive, at times he would bark at the mantle.
Hmm.
And every once in a while, I'd get a chill. It's like, I wonder if Dad is here.
Checking
Very
in
well
on
could
you.
be.
Hmm.
Very well
Could
could
be.
be because
Hmm.
pets are really good at picking up on things even the human eye can't see.
Right.
And it's one thing I do believe that the paranormal television shows is when you experience a sudden drop in temperature, kind of
Hmm.
like what you just mentioned, that means there's a spirit nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
a sudden unexpected drop in temperature is one way they can let you know they're there. And that
Right.
doesn't
I
necessarily
think
mean
it's
who it is, but
pulling the energy out of the air is what creates that cold spot.
Yeah.
so if Chester was barking at it and that was a spot that was well loved by him,
Hmm.
he probably came to see you.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, we were living in a different house just after Dad died. We moved into this one in 2005, but I guess Dad must have come along with us.
Well, the
Well,
spirits
Yeah.
yeah.
they can attach to you to objects that were important to them, and
Hmm.
then when you transport those objects with you, if they're attached to the objects, or
Hmm.
yourself if they're attached to you, the spirits will go with you.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. Well, I think we did it, folks.
Two, we actually did it.
Yep.
Any last questions or comments for Rebecca? Anything from the chat room that anybody might have put in there? I'm not watching it because I get all kinds of echo.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this because I learned a lot about this.
So have I just by listening. And
Exactly.
I hope my questions didn't seem too out of place. I wasn't sure how to ask.
And
No, you're fine.
once you've done it once or twice, you'll get more comfortable doing it.
Hmm.
I
Uh
mean,
huh.
just think about what my questions were like way back in the beginning, and yet here
Uh,
I am
uh,
using terminology that Rebecca and I both know all too well. Like if I asked the three of you if you knew what dowsing rods were, could you tell me?
uh, I know what the original dowsing rod was used for. Look for water.
Yes,
Hmm.
and that's the same thing.
Same
It's the
thing
same
here.
thing. It's exactly what it is. They're also called water witchers. And so it's either two pieces of wood or we use copper wire. And yeah, you use them to look for water. They can also be used to look for graves. When you're
Uh,
doing a paranormal investigation, though, you just hold them like you were looking for water, but you're sitting still and you ask yes or no questions. They cross and uncross the rods.
And another thing they can do too, and not I'm imagine not everybody can does this. You can also use them for identification purposes to verify that a spirit is present. For example, if the five of us were sitting in a room and I'm holding a pair of dowsing rods, and maybe for the five of us it was a location that none of us had ever been to before, and holding up the dowsing rods, I say, and we'll assume going into what I'm about to say that we've already had some yes no interaction, whatnot with it. I might say something like, "Can you point at Shirley?" And then the two rods will move in unison and
kind of
point at
like,
Shirley.
kind of like,
Hmm.
okay, really, kind of like that.
Yeah, and they move together. Well,
Yeah,
That's
a little bit more
that's what
spread
I
out
did.
than that, but yeah, basically they're more spread out.
Hmm.
right,
And
right. They'll point. They'll point at.
the
You can use them
point
to
at
point at
yeah, they'll move and point at Shirley because you're not asking them a yes or no question. You're asking them to identify something. So if
Hmm.
you
Uh-huh.
think there's a spirit here and they would know who someone
Oh,
is,
excuse
you
me.
can ask them to have the rods point at that person or point at that object,
right,
and they
right.
can identify that.
There's a lot of different stuff you can do. I've had one where they say that the rods hug them. The rods will go all the way out and against your arms on either side. That makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. It's fun. It's interesting. The rod, I really like using divining rods during an investigation, especially with people who've never investigated before, because when those divining rods move and
And they move
they're
on, and they appear to move on their own too, because it's the
yeah,
spirit that's manipulating them. You're not. You're just sitting there with your hands out, holding the rods, and the spirit is what's moving them.
yeah,
And I've found from a lot of times I've seen child spirits in particular love
mhm,
dowsing rods because to them it's just a fun toy to play with, just like the one that Kelly was interacting with the pendulum. They love playing with toys, literally.
they do. They
Mhm.
do.
All right.
Well, if
Well,
there are no other questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap that up for the night.
yeah.
Rebecca, thank you very much for coming on and talking
We
tonight
really
about the
enjoyed
Cambre
you,
House.
Rebecca.
Yeah. Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed having you
Yeah,
on.
thanks for having me on. Like I said, obviously Tim and I, we could talk ghost stuff all night long.
We have been known to have an occasional running conversation over Facebook about the static cameras or what have you. And I hope if COVID-19 lets up that the QC Expo can happen again this year, and hopefully I will see you there when it happens. If not, at some point I really, really, really would love to get down and see the Cambry House for myself,
Yeah,
Wait a
I hope.
second.
and
I just
maybe do a
realized
ghost
something.
tour
Hold
or
it.
investigation or
Oh,
Shirley,
yes.
go ahead.
I just realized something. Tim, don't you need to reveal something?
Yes, I do. I haven't quite got there yet. But before we, what? Now's a good time to do it. So before we go, I want to let everybody know about something that happened to me a week ago, or approximately a week ago. And if you're on my Facebook page, you'll see that I posted a sometimes watch different paranormal podcasts. I normally don't come on Tuesday nights, for example, because I watch Mike Rick Secker's live streams on YouTube. Another one I watch is called Booze and Booze. BOO apostrophe S and booze like alcohol
Yeah.
booze.
I love the
It's hosted
title.
by Mike Hatcher, hosted by Mike Hatcher of Dead Republic Paranormal, Matt Warner of Warner Paranormal, Steve Brote of Seven Circle Productions, Tori Smith of the Paranormal Help Desk, and Kenna Hunter. I'm not quite sure what she does because until this podcast, I had no idea who she was. I want to know her better, but I don't know her like I do
Excuse
the
me,
other four.
people.
And they were having a special episode. They had a few announcements that they wanted to make. One of them being the revelation that Dead Republic's second documentary had just been filmed at Wilson Castle in Proctor, Vermont. And Matt Warner announced that he managed to secure the weekend of the 23rd to the 25th to have an event of his own at Wilson Castle. And I had commented after being invited on as a special guest appearance, which was a surprise for me. I wasn't expecting to. I mean, I go when I talk in the chat room. I was actually on camera with them, and I mentioned, that sounds like something I really like to go because the place is absolutely gorgeous. If you've ever seen the pictures of it, it's on my wall. It's a beautiful castle, and I don't remember who it was off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look. But somebody said, let's start a GoFundMe and get Tim out here. Not even 5 minutes later, I had round trip airfare from Moline to whatever the closest airport is
That
booked.
is awesome, Tim.
I
I'm
am
so
going
excited
to
for you.
actually investigate with Dead Republic Paranormal and Matt Warner and Steve Broden, hopefully Star Encounters as well. From
Mm-hmm.
October
That's
3rd
going to be so awesome.
My meals are covered, my lodging is covered, and all I need is money for souvenirs. And on top of
Mm-hmm.
That's
that,
going to be so
Steve is going to bring me a Madhouse, a paranormal documentary poster which is on Amazon Prime. I really encourage you to check that out if you haven't seen it.
That's so
About
cool.
Madison Seminary in Madison, Ohio. He's going to bring that forward. I just found that out just a day or two ago. That was buried in the chat, and I didn't even notice it. And then Mike Hatcher said that he's going to bring me a Dead Republic T-shirt, something I've been wanting to buy. Now I'm just going to get one. Period. And then they're going to have some posters printed up for Goodwill Haunting, which is the title of the second documentary, just like they did with Sleepless in Salamanca. And Mike said they're going to sign one for me right in front of me and hand it over, which I was not expecting that either. So
That
I've
is so
already
cool.
guaranteed a
Things are
minimum
looking
three
up for you,
pieces of
Spirit
swag,
Spotter.
round trip airfare. This is a haunted castle, people.
I know. That is so
If
cool,
you're not
Tim.
familiar with it, go to wilsoncastle.com. It's a relatively unheard of location by paranormal. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to stay that way now that this is getting out, but a lot of the big names, and so far as I know, have never been there. And when I saw the pictures of the architectural style and whatnot, I literally fell in love with it. And
Oh,
because it's a castle, it also gave off the old school Scooby Doo vibe to it. You know, like when they were running
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah,
I mean, this
it
is
does.
not
I've
exactly
seen the pictures, Tim, and it looks
cobwebs
so
everywhere.
cool.
Yeah,
It's
this
gonna
was
be
not
awesome.
gonna have spider webs everywhere and mummies bursting out of coffins or anything like that. But just the fact that it's a haunted castle, literally.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful building, and inside and out. If you haven't seen the pictures and you're on my Facebook friends, please go check them out.
Mhm. I
And
have. That place looks cool.
I did not expect a lick of that. My surprise was just being able to come on camera and then really wanting to go because I've seen the pictures that they shared and how beautiful the property is. Boom! I don't even think it took 5 minutes. One person chipped in 50, another one chipped in 50, another one chipped in 100, another one chipped in 250. That's like
Wow,
400 if my
that is
math's
so
right
amazing,
there.
Tim.
And it's a round trip. They got it may vary closer to the October, but we actually looked it up, and a round trip ticket, and this has to be round trip simply because of the price, was like $445. And
That's not
if I
bad.
did my math correctly, that was 400 of it right there. And I
Mhm.
thought somebody said they were going to pitch in the difference to make it happen. Breaking out of that shell to meet these friends of mine that I'm very close to and actually investigate a haunted castle. And I'm going to try to do a Facebook, at least one Facebook Live during the experience, just so you can literally see me having the time of my life. And
Oh,
Nothing wrong with that.
yes, I want to see
I've
this so
already,
bad.
and then another
I
surprise
have.
for everybody. I have already begun bringing up the idea of, I don't know, having them on my show to help me talk about it after it's over with.
Nothing wrong with
Yeah,
that. That's a cool idea.
So
Hey,
that's my
whatever
big
works there.
surprise for everybody. I'm going to Vermont to investigate a haunted castle. And
so cool.
if any of them are listening, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I'm serious. I love
Thank
you
you for
guys. I
making our
love that you
friends.
do it for your own. This is why I love being a part of this field. The people in it, they look after each other, they take care of each other, and I'd say at least 9.9 out of 10 people share the information and whatnot with each other.
Yep.
So,
Tim, Tim,
Jan,
to the Booze and Booze crew and everybody that made your dream come true, may karma smile on y'all.
and they have told me the love and support I share with everybody, the good vibes, and everything. This is their way of giving back to me. I would say probably about 100-fold easily,
Mhm. I'd agree
and
with that.
I'm gonna give them their money's worth. I'm going to Vermont in October unless I beat my maker before then, which is not gonna happen because I'm not
No,
going there
no,
without
don't you
fight.
even talk like that, Mike. Tim. Ah! I,
I didn't
No,
talk
you
about
have to do
that.
this trip first. You have to do this trip. I went to Vermont in October. Oh gosh, 3 years ago. No, 4 years ago.
sorry,
It
Tim.
was amazing. You're gonna have so much fun, Tim. I am so excited for you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Tim. Don't talk like that, Tim.
I'm not talking about that, Jan. I'm saying that the only reason I wouldn't go is because I literally am not alive to go. I don't care if I have to hobble on crutches. I am going to Vermont in October.
Oh,
All right.
hey,
I promise
Rebecca.
to bring
I
back
always
pictures
call
of the
Tim
place
Mike all the
live and
time.
more. Yeah, she
Calls me
makes that
Tim.
mistake
Yeah,
all the
you
time.
yeah you always get them mixed up.
Yeah. Oh, but I can laugh at myself about it now.
That's
Yeah.
good. All right. I think we can officially wrap this
I
up
think
now.
we can officially wrap it up. Rebecca, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thanks again.
We
Like I said, I always
appreciate
appreciate having the time to spread the message of the house and what I'm doing out there. So thank you.
And I love the new information I learned about it tonight. And I am serious when I say I want to get out there sometime and see the house for myself.
I'm gonna get you out there one of these days.
We'll have
It's
to
gonna
get Chad.
happen.
We'll have to get Chad there with us too, and
Yes.
have a time of our lives.
Oh, it'll be fun.
All right. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it. Thank you to Rebecca Williamson for being our guest tonight. This was a very, very informative episode because I learned a lot about the Cambre house and other aspects of things that I
And
actually didn't know myself.
we will do more episodes in a roundtable format like this, rather than always having me just simply spew forth the information. Because my one of my main goals in starting this way back when was to help share the knowledge I have with other people. It's so
Hmm.
easy to talk about something you love to people that don't know. Yeah, I could ramble on and on. Like Rebecca said, I can ramble on and on and on and on and on. And I know it's not everybody's hobby, but I want to share that hobby with you. And I hope you learn something from it, especially if you're watching paranormal television and Zach Bagans decides to start threatening every spirit in front of him like you're not supposed to do.
Hmm.
You'll know that, yeah, that's for ratings. That's not for actual investigation. That's why I still watch the show. I don't
Right.
believe everything he does is anywhere near legit anymore. We all know it's for ratings, but the properties are probably really are haunted, and that might be worth something to look into sometime.
Yeah, I mean, and seriously, now with this, we have the possibility we can put more guests in different fields on here too.
We could.
Hmm.
Who knows? The next guest I may have for Secrets of the Unknown, and it cycles back around in about a month. You've done
Hmm.
it once. Now you know the kind of questions to ask of them when that happens.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And I've got an idea for an intention of one episode, not this one, but a future one. But anyway, let's see. Hold on. I think yeah, my thing's on the unstable thing again. All right, there we go. Now I'm back. Okay. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this episode tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow with Rant Rocket Thursday. Yes, we have our
Yeah,
Supernova Rant Rocket, and trust me, we got plenty of stories that practically catch that already. I'm not
make
gonna
you
mention
laugh,
any. I'm not gonna spoil it.
make you laugh, make you cry. Set off the rant rocket or six.
Yeah. Well, actually, now we just use our supernova since now we can
Well, yeah,
animate it.
oh, speaking of that,
Hmm.
we never did that. I don't think. At least I didn't see it.
Oh,
The animated opening for Secrets of the Unknown that we made.
okay. Well,
Did we ever do that?
I put it up. I don't know if it ever played or not, though.
It played. I
Okay,
saw it.
Did it play?
good. Thank you. All
You
right.
know what? You know what? Can you share that on my wall so Rebecca can see it
Yeah.
and everybody else too? Because
Okay, I'll be glad to do
I
it.
Shirley put that together for me. I picked the music and all
Hmm.
that out.
because I actually
And
wanted
then
to
we
start.
also have an outro.
Sorry
I actually
about that.
I actually wanted to start with some funny sound effects. Like, wait a minute, no, this is Tim's baby. I want this to be a little more
Yeah.
serious
Secrets
here.
of the Unknown in particular, of the two shows I host, this one in particular is my baby. I treat it with the professionalism and the dignity it deserves.
Right.
Because I'm helping share something I love with the listening audience.
Yeah, and all I got to say that is
So,
thank you, Toonly. You've been a helpful friend to
thank you
me.
to yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, anyway, that is all for tonight. So I'm just gonna say love, peace, and chicken grease. Everybody have a great night. Sleep well. Stay safe. And we'll see you tomorrow for Rant Rocket Thursday. Now let's see if I can get this closing right. Here we go.
I won't see it because I'm unemployed. A nice little ghost followed by.
That means you're fucked.
Yep.
Sorry.
And there we go. That's
And
it.
here we go.
Good night, everyone.
Good
See you
night,
Thursday.
Take
everybody.
care, everybody.
Good
Rebecca,
night, everybody. Thank you again, Rebecca. Really appreciate
Yep.
it.
Anytime.
show up to the Rant Rocket Thursday. Get to really express your opinion.
Surprise us, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. See y'all later. Take care, everybody.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks, guys.
Everybody,
Good night, everybody.
I'm gonna keep
We
my
really
eye on that
enjoyed you,
camera.
Rebecca. Bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna keep my eyes on that camera for a little.